How you doing, Fan Bam? This is Chris Mizu here. I have in my hand the Dualsense Edge controller. I'm just about to open it up. I apologize if this video took so long for me to post, but I wanted to do some extended tests, especially that I'm going to compare the OG Dualsense controller with the Dualsense Edge controller. I'm going to open this up and I'll show you exactly what Sony will pack you. Currently, you're unable to purchase this controller from Amazon or Best Buy or any other retailers because it is exclusive to the PlayStation Store for the very first month. It's quite small. It's not as big as you would originally think it is because the box is pretty minimalistic and it looks like they kind of just packed it directly into here. You can take a look how they packed it in there. We can pull it directly out. And there it is. And I'll show you how the back of it looks like. I would imagine it's probably not going to be so different from the actual Dualsense controller or from the OG Dualsense controller. And here it is. Once you open it up, it just has this white packing that pulls out here, but it comes nice and neatly packed here. And comes in this nice little case here. It just kind of flops open. And there it is. So when you open it further, when you open the underneath cover here, you get a little instruction manual here that, as always. And when I open this up, boom. Wow, look at that thing. Isn't that pretty? It's actually a pretty tough hard shell case. Definitely harder than I realized. You know what it kind of feels like? It actually feels like the controller, the case. It's pretty dope. On the back of it, it has the markings like the PlayStation 5 does. When you look outside their console, you open this up. It's not wire tied or anything, so you don't have to sniff it. Just open this up and you can access the case. On the back of it here, it's Velcroed on, you can hear it. And now you can see inside of there, in here you can actually charge your controller through the case. How do you see the PlayStation markings, which is pretty dope here. And then in there you get your interchangeable joysticks. You also have this little lock to lock your USB-C cable to your PlayStation controller. Up here, that's sitting up on the top, is the actual USB-C cable. Looks like it's about 10 feet or so. And the actual Dualsense controller. It has the little paddles on the back. You can swap them out. So let me just take out the actual Dualsense Edge controller so you can take a look at it yourself. Very, very beautiful looking. Here you actually add the triggers back here. So let's put those on real quick. You have the option between of using this right here. You can use that to swap out with the paddles, or you could use the longer paddles. Preferably, I'm probably gonna prefer the longer paddles just because you have the extended reach. You got that. You got this USB-C locking connection, which I will show you shortly. And you also have these joysticks that you can swap out with your PlayStation controller. As that, and you just match it up back there. And you're just gonna put it into the back, install it into the back, just like this, and just clicks in. It's not gonna fall out or anything like that. Same thing with the other side. We're gonna install that in real quick, and it just sticks in. It's kind of magnetized in there, so it's not gonna kind of pop out as easy as you think it would. And to uninstall it, you just simply just pop it out. You can feel the magnet holding it. And it comes right out. You put the smaller paddle, if this is what you prefer here. Customize it that way. I don't know why anyone would want way two different ones, but you can do it this way if this is the way you prefer. This one's a little bit more tactile and clicky, kind of almost like a mouse button. I was actually talking to a friend's brother about this Dualsense Edge controller, and from what he says, he really loves it, especially the fact you can actually pull this cover off. On the back of it here, you'll see a release button. It's kind of really small, and you're gonna see that whole faceplate kind of come off as it is, and we can lift it. And then from here, if you just had a problem with the joystick and you had issues, which is a really common when it comes to controllers, all of us know that eventually you might have that drift. And if you run into that issue, you don't have to purchase a whole new controller. I know some of you do-it-yourselfers out there will actually fix the joystick and take it apart, but Sony has a much easier solution. Let me show you. So if you have a problem with either joystick, you just pop up this release, pull it straight down like that, and it's just a simple USB. And one of my friend's brothers says it's like about 20 bucks just to replace the joystick itself. So you can reinstall it here, just plug it in, and simply just lock it into place. I'm sure some of you saw out there, you can also change designs of these faceplates if you so choose to. They got different colors, they got different schemes, but if you want to do that, you can easily do it. Simply just line it up, reattach it, and bam, it's reconnected. Definitely has a little bit more weight. And also on the back of it has some stipling, which I really like. Say you ain't feeling this joystick controller, this little concave design that they usually have when it comes. So all you have to do is pull it out straight and it comes out just like that. Unlike the grip shirts where you kind of cover the joystick, then you can pick something that you prefer more. Maybe you prefer something a little bit thicker. You can easily just reinstall it just like this. Just push it into place and it'll snap, and there it is. You know what it kind of reminds me of? The old school PlayStation controllers, where it was just a full-on surface area instead of concave design. But if you prefer more of something like this, then you can easily swap it out with that type of design if you don't like the feel of your thumb sitting inside the groove with this type of joystick. But take a look at the difference here, and it is a much bigger surface area if you choose to swap it out. Look how nice that looks. And I just love the fact how I got the X and squares up here on the top. It really is a beautiful controller. Let's find out if it really is worth $199.99 for this controller. It is a braided USB-C cable. You can tell it has kind of that anchor quality to where if you bend and twist it and everything, it prevents the wires from getting tangled, which is a really nice feature. We can charge up the controller. You pop this open and you can see that it has a little groove in there. So you're gonna put the USB-C cable in there, just like this. And then you just plug it into the top of your Dualsense Edge controller. And you just plug that in and you're gonna lock it into place. And that should prevent it from popping out into place. We got the controller all ready, and how it looks on the back port's just like this. And we're gonna charge it up and get ready for use. Fam bam, we're here in my living room. I am a mess. You might see me change because I'm gonna go shower in a little bit. But I want to let you know I did fully charge the original Dualsense controller because I want to see exactly how long the battery life of the original Dualsense controller is compared to the Dualsense Edge. I'm going to be testing it out on 4 different titles. I'm going to be testing the original Dualsense first on Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, and we're also going to test it out on Horizon Forbidden West. Now, these are all great titles. I got my Dualsense controller up there charging on the wire. I made sure it was completely full before we actually start playing any games here. Let's go ahead and start testing out this controller as soon as it's disconnected and see how long we played these titles for, and we will time it. And as you can see that it is truly fully charged. Hopefully that's a good enough angle that you can see right there. Let's go ahead and get started and see how it plays out. We're gonna go to settings here, and we're gonna go to accessories, and you're gonna go over to controller general. Here you can set the vibration intensity. Strong is the standard setting, but you can also lower these standards if you're trying to prolong your battery life. You can also use Bluetooth communication. You have the standard press and hold delay, and you also have the software, which is up to date, which is the 0307. Controller speaker is close to full. You can also create shortcut buttons or create buttons even for your video captures. And you can even select how long you want these game clips to actually record for. And then you also have custom button assignments. You typically would enable this, and you can actually switch up the left and right analog sticks if you want to, and you can customize your button assignments if you want. And I don't think you want to change around the default settings too much when it comes to PS5. So we're gonna turn this off. That's as far you can get to controller settings on, and see what type of battery life we can get out of it, what type of feel we can get out of this controller. If you're not familiar already with the DualSense controller, this is just the share button up here on the top end. Kind of like NVIDIA's GeForce if you were to use it. Currently, I'm using it in God of War. I'm just recording the gameplay here. And then on the top right, you have your menu selection, which is kind of like your start button here. This middle button is more just like mute the speaker. That's all it does, or you want to mute your mic. And then you also have your X, square, triangle, circle, and you have your typical D-pad. The D-pad's always been solid when it comes to DualSense. I really love the D-pad compared to Xbox's D-pad, honestly, just because I prefer it spaced out. Especially when it comes to fighting games, it's way more comfortable. The grip is a lot easier to grip on this as well. It doesn't have a plastic feel. And the intensity of the adaptive triggers is a big turn on when it comes to gaming. No pun intended. So the adaptive triggers, you can feel it if you're breaking ice or if you're slinging webs. Then you have your typical R1, R2. And you do have your touchpad, which is a really nice feature. It's kind of like a mouse into a PC. I mean, a mouse into PS5. You do have your PlayStation button, which acts as your typical menu to bring up. If you don't like your control sticks closer together, a lot of people complained about it. But with the DualSense, they space it much better compared to the DualShock 4. Everybody didn't like how the DualShock 4 was. I really didn't like the DualShock 3, where you could literally touch your thumbs together when you're playing. On the back, it's just a typical design here. It's nothing crazy, it's nothing special. You also have the USB-C design, which makes it nice and handy. Now, when you press the buttons, it's much more of a clicky feel. So you get a solid touch, almost like a feel of like a mechanical keyboard when you're pressing it, but it's just not as loud. It's clicky, mushy, I can say. The joysticks are very nice to use because of the grip, and then you have your typical click to your L3 and R3. You do have the bottom port, which features the mic, if you want to hook one up to it. What's also really nice with this controller, with the DualSense, if you're not familiar with how the back triggers are, if you have a PS5, I know you're more than familiar with the adaptive triggers. So when you're using the adaptive triggers, just like how Kratos is using his Blades of Chaos, when you are using it into the adaptive triggers, you can actually feel how the blades actually feel. Now, if you switch over to his other weapon, to the axe now, and once you start swinging, you can actually feel a little bit more resistance, and you can actually feel the weight of the axe that is being swung. Now, if you even freeze it up with the adaptive triggers, you could swing, and you can feel the weight changes. So that is a really amazing thing about the DualSense controller. So we're getting to the battery. DualSense wireless controller battery level is finally low. Looks like the DualSense controller has finally finished its run. It has finally died. It was about 120 hours and 34 minutes of standby time where the controller was inactive, and about a total of 9 hours and 26 minutes of actual gameplay time until the battery had finally shut down. So now let's give the DualSense Edge controller a chance to see if the battery life has improved over its OG DualSense controller. The DualSense Edge controller is fully charged. I'm just gonna unhook it. Now we can pull it out its case. We will officially start it up. almost that similar look just as the original DualSense controller. It has a little indicator right here on the bottom here to let you know that it is connecting. When you first start it up, it's going to show you a DualSense Edge screen, which I'll show you right here. So usually you'll get a prompt about your DualSense Edge controller first connecting to the PlayStation 5. I accidentally exited out, but it'll take you onto something like this, like the tour. It will explain the customizable back buttons of L2 and R2, which are the stop sliders with the adjustable stroke lengths, which we mentioned earlier with the unboxing, as you see right back here. And then it also mentions the function buttons for quick access, which are in front of the controller, as we talked about. And the replaceable stick modules, as we saw earlier today. You can also swap out your button assignments to your preferences, which is not too different from the standard controller. And then you can also adjust input sensitivities for your sticks. And you could also set your input range for the adjustable triggers. It also gives you up to custom profiles, and you can use the function buttons to switch between different profiles. It'll give you a list of the different profiles you can enter. And now we can start with our own custom profiles, say for Ghost of Tsushima. It looks like you can put a total of 4 profiles that you can switch between, and you can add an extra 3 next to it if you choose to swap it out. Now you can customize your button assignments, such as L3 just say, and R3, just for sample sake. You can change the sensitivity. You can change it from quick, precise, steady, digital, and dynamic. So let's give that a shot. And you can even curve the adjustment if you choose to. You can change dead zone adjustments. And that's just for the left stick. And then you could go into the right stick and do the same. And we can make the other one more steady. As you see, the actual controller itself is reading in the gray, and the adjusted input is in the blue. You can change trigger dead zones. You can even have it preset to start from, say, 20%. If you're leaning on L2 or R2, you can set it both the same. So that way it can act as a dead zone until you hit that 20% range, which is great for shooters if you don't want the sensitivity too high. And you can have your fingers ready on the L2 or R2 triggers. But for now, we'll just leave it at 0. And you can set the vibration intensity. For battery testing, we will leave it on strong to see if it would equal out or be better than the OG DualSense controller. There's a lot of customizability that you can do with this controller. There's a lot of more options compared to the OG DualSense controller. You can even receive feedback to let you know that the controller switched over to a different profile. I am liking the joysticks, the options of the joysticks. The caps feel a lot more thicker. It really gives me that old OG PlayStation feel. And then you already have the D-pads, the clickiness. It's a little bit more mushy instead of the regular DualSense controller. And let's go in game to see how it is. So it looks like the controller has finally died out, the DualSense Edge. And right now, I can tell you the times. So standby time, or inactive time, I should say, is 37 hours and 23 minutes. And for active game time, it lasted about 7 hours and 8 minutes. So you can already see it is already almost a 2 hour and 20 minute difference compared to the original DualSense controller. Now let's see if this controller can hook up to a PC, because I know some of you out there are more interested in hooking up the DualSense Edge controller to your PC. Fam bam, we are here. First we're gonna do by USB. I just love this feature. This holds on to your DualSense controller. I don't suggest you do it, And again, this feels like an anchor wire, really good quality USB-C wire to USB-A. So we're gonna hook it up directly to the PC first, and we're gonna see how well it recognizes it. Then we'll hook it up via Bluetooth and see how well it will respond to it then. The DualSense controller is now officially hooked up to the PC, and now we're gonna see if the PC recognizes it. We're gonna go into, let's see here. We're gonna go into Bluetooth and other devices to see if it is connected. So we see DualSense Edge wireless edge controller, that's good. It's under audio, and it does show up under other devices here. Let's see if it responds. We're gonna try to enter a game in Steam. We will go into Steam big picture mode here, and we're gonna enter the PlayStation or DualSense settings so that way we get the input as a DualSense controller. So it is responding. We'll go to settings here, and let's just put on PlayStation configuration support. Let's try a game out and see how well it responds. Let's just go into Final Fantasy. I do like the fact that it does show different colors and everything when you do hook it up to a PC. You don't have to have this full plastic connection if you don't want to. It's a great option to do it, especially if you don't like to lose connection during gameplay. We got all the DualSense controllers, has R3, L3, and what about the customization, you might ask? Well, that's gonna be a little bit different. That could be a whole nother guide that I can show you how to do that. But for now, we are just gonna focus to see if it just has the DualSense controller options and if it plays well on PC. You can hear the graphics card whirring over here in the back, but it really is a beautiful controller, I gotta say. We do have some action buttons. As you can see, we got X, so we're gonna do that. We can pick that up, and then I'm sure it will have the other options. Let them rest up here. So I'm hitting the back of the controller here. You're probably curious about the paddle shifters here, and it did actually respond to it. So you're probably wondering what these options are on the back of the controller. This will have the intensity of the actual trigger, as you can see here. See how much more stiff that is? And now if I go to the middle, and let's raise it all the way up here. And now how nice and loose, but you can customize how stiff you want your adaptive trigger here. So that'll work on PC as well. It seems like it already remembers what I had originally inputted for it. See how well it responds. I'm pretty happy with how quick it is responding. The input lag seems to be pretty non-existent when it comes to it. They're like with the usual controllers. And again, I gotta say, Sony does really come out with some solid controllers here. It definitely works. Now, what about Bluetooth? Let's disconnect it and find out. So we're gonna disconnect it. Now, what we have to do is get the DualSense Edge controller to connect via Bluetooth. In order to do this action, we have to have our DualSense controller completely off as it is. Now, all we have to do is hit the share button here, hold it, and then we're gonna have to hold the PlayStation button at the same time, and the light bar will blink. You see how it's blinking? It's ready for Bluetooth pairing mode, so I just have to go into the PC and pretty much set it. Let's go into Bluetooth setting here, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna connect without issue. DualSense Edge wireless controller is connected. We are connected, as you can see, wirelessly to the PC. Will it respond? Yes, no problems. I'm making delicious dishes for the campfire. Everything looks good to go. I don't know if toast is gonna be good enough to fill me up here, but apparently it will. DualSense does work with PC, just like your typical OG DualSense controller. Now, finally, let's get to the point here. Pricing wise, let's talk here. Just me and you guys. You're gonna wanna have a seat after this. Didn't mean to turn that on. My wife's gonna be good. I turned on my OG controller by accident. My wife will not be too happy about that. She'll think the house is haunted. Anyway, you can see the big difference between the two. You can see one's a Dualsense Edge controller, obviously, and you can also see what the OG Dualsense controller is. And you can definitely feel the weight difference in it. This is definitely a lot lighter than the Dualsense Edge. And I do gotta say, the pricing wise, you can pick up the OG Dualsense controller for about $69.99. You get very good battery life on it. About 9 hours and 26 minutes, I believe I said, of playtime. And you get a ton of standby time. Now, I wanted to review this carefully because I don't want to give you a BS review, and I'm going to tell you honestly what my thoughts are. PlayStation or Sony has always made great controllers here. The OG controller works perfectly fine. If you're happy with it, then by all means play with it. But if you're really competitive, there's nothing wrong to go Dualsense Edge. The Dualsense Edge controller is really, really great. I really do love this controller. It did take me by surprise, and I honestly was not in a market to purchase a controller because I wanted to see if it really would impress me, and I gotta be honest, it really did, considering everything that it came with. But as I mentioned earlier, the Dualsense Edge controller is a little bit more pricey. It is $199.99 for this controller. Is it really worth it? I gotta say, it's worth it to a point. I don't think it's worth $199.99 USD for this controller, but I do think it should have been priced around $149.99 USD. Even $169.99 USD would have been good enough in my personal opinion. $199.99 for a controller is a bit outrageous, but it does come with a neat little package, as I showed you earlier. Of course, it came with one flaw. When I opened it, it seemed that the zippers were working fine. Apparently the left zipper stopped working and it kept getting stuck. So apparently Sony won't just replace just the case. I gotta send back the whole Dualsense controller in order for them to replace it. But at least Sony was good about it. I just gotta return it within 10 days and they will give me a brand new Dualsense Edge controller. So do I think it is worth it? It is worth it if you are a competitive gamer. If you play a ton of games and you have a ton of customized ideas for your controller, which will make your whole gaming easier, especially even when you put L3 and R3 into the back of the triggers, it does increase your playing experience. You do enjoy it more. It is a solid controller. Again, it is like a brick. You could literally knock somebody out in the face if you threw this at them. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it will have plenty of features to come, especially what really drew me to this controller is the fact that you can swap out these caps, which is really nice. You can just pull them out and then you can put these bigger caps on there, or you can even switch out a whole official joystick where if you have any drift issues, you won't have any problems. You just got to replace that joystick. You can fit up a ton of profiles here. Your default settings have up to about 4 to 5 profiles, which you can switch in and out of, which is great for first-person shooters, RPGs, any type of game really that you can find an easier function with your controller and customize it with. This controller will give you full capabilities of doing so. So if you play a lot of games, or if you're super competitive, if you play games, first-person shooters, Rainbow Six, any type of first-person shooter game, it will definitely increase your experience and you will get much better interaction from this controller. Unfortunately, I can't really measure the input lag, but I would imagine the input lag would probably is pretty much similar with both controllers, as they are from the same family. But if you're happy and you just play your daily games and you're not looking to really customize or increase your experience, you don't think you're going to take full advantage of a Dualsense Edge controller, this controller works perfectly fine too. The OG Dualsense Edge controller is awesome. It works great, and there's nothing wrong with just playing with this controller here. But if I had to pick both, in my personal opinion, I do like the Dualsense Edge controller a little bit more because I was taken back and was surprised about how useful it is. The only negative side I have to say about the Dualsense Edge controller is the fact that the battery life is a lot shorter, which is a big takeaway from it. It's pretty negative, especially you're spending $199.99 USD for a controller. Come on, Sony, you could do better than that. If you're spending $199.99 for a controller, you at least add 20% more battery life to the controller, because that's pretty important, especially in gaming. Who needs a controller to die while you're in game? It does come with really nice features. I do like the case charging, and it is a solid case. Again, the way the case feels, it feels just like a controller. It's wild. I thought it was just going to be plastic, or if it was just going to be like kind of like a leatherish feeling, but it actually feels like you're holding a controller literally in your hands when you're holding the Dualsense Edge case. Now, this obviously does not come with a case, but then again, the functions are excellent on a OG Dualsense controller, and they both are great. FamBam, guys, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy content just like this, make sure you go down and hit the subscribe button for more, to be part of the big wonderful FamBam, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. If you know anybody else who is interested in the Dualsense Edge controller, please share this video with them, and make sure you follow my Twitter handle right here, as it is the same as my TikTok and IG as well, for all the newest updates. So FamBam, guys, what is your personal opinion of the Dualsense controller? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Chris Pizzo, signing out.